Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flick, The Strain, Episode 6, Occultation. Alonso, Duralde, William Bibbiani.
Hi.
Let's have a look at what went down.
I was getting on the subway today and I did see like 10 rats.
Something is driving them out of their nests.
Like what?
Together we create a better world!
Let us go to destroy humanity. Who's he?
The Strain.
I think I just want the show to be Ratcatcher Vampire Hunter.
I love this guy so much, Kevin Durand. And what I really like about him, aside from the fact that he's just kind of a badass, but he's also gets to come at the horror in a different way. Everyone else is like, though there's a virus and there's an outbreak and there's vampires. For this guy, he might as well be in a sequel to Chud. Like that's what he's doing right now, and he gets to be in his own little world. He's so much fun. I can't wait for him to take on a bigger role as the series goes on. Like I really can't wait. Like get on with it. What the hell?
Yeah, no, I'm waiting for his stream and Dr. Goodfoot's to come together and be a thing. So this was an interesting sort of transitional episode where, like, okay, now we go, Jewish Armenian vampire hunter is on the case, but then we also get Holocaust flashbacks, and we also get.
Aren't they all transitional episodes so far? It feels like every episode feels like, okay, now next week.
Yeah, here's what we're gonna do now.
Gonna hit the fan.
Yeah.
But what I do like about that is there is this consistent sense of momentum, and although I thought the first couple episodes after the pilot were spinning their wheels a little bit, after that, every episode has contributed something new. So even though, like, the flashbacks to the Holocaust maybe aren't the big game changer we thought they'd be, they do keep it different and fun.
And they're definitely
if the Holocaust can ever be described as fun.
Well, it's always a little dicey to sort of try and tie in one of the great horrors of history into like your wacky vampire show,
it's sort of
but
like,
I think they're kind of they're not they haven't been offensive yet.
It's a strange thing about cinematic storytelling, whether it's in film or on TV, where some of the greatest tragedies in history or just to an individual, like the Holocaust, or on a more personal level, cancer, can feel so trite when a movie or a TV show pulls it out. And here, it gives us a sense. It gives us a sense of history. It gives us a sense that this has been going on for a while. But when you equate it to the Holocaust, it's basically taking the most extreme possible example in order to give yourself a mythology.
I think what the show does intelligently is, rather than make the Holocaust have been all about vampires, they make the Holocaust a good place for a vampire to hide out in.
Yes.
And do his thing, and that's fine. That's not
that could be
awful.
its own little movie.
Totally,
honestly.
yeah. So you're not going Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter on this.
I'm not sure who else was worried that was gonna. You've brought it up a couple of times. They were really worried that once we hit the Holocaust, that it was going to turn out to be all about vampires. I don't know who else was really worried about that.
I take nothing for granted. I think casting Kathleen Chalfant always helps.
Of course,
she's great, and so that gave it some
gravitas.
Gravitas, as Christian Lemire would say. Also, the casting of Larry Fessenden in this episode I thought was fun.
Larry Fessenden, he's so much fun. I love his movies. He's fun as an actor. It's just sort of like a bit piece where he comes in, he's going to dispose of a body.
He's the cleaner.
But he brings, what I like about that is a lot of times on the show they'll bring in like an incidental character and they just feel like their plot point. Like last week when we had
the Dutch Velders.
Dutch Velders, yes, Dutch Velders, the hacker who comes in.
We've not seen the last of her.
I hope so, but like even so, she comes on to be like the hacker who wears a leather jacket and is surprisingly a woman. Like that's the only thing she got to do. But Larry Fessenden got one brief scene and he really made it his own. He is really, really fun. He comes in, he feels like he was doing something before the scene started and afterwards. It wasn't like he was waiting to say his lines.
And I love that Regina King would have that guy on speed dial.
Of course. No, of course. I mean, come on. You don't represent musicians and not have to dispose of a body now and then.
Exactly. You had to disappear a hooker when necessary.
Yeah, of course.
So all right. So now you've got Ephraim completely on board with, all right, we'll behead them and burn them then, because that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Lady, I don't remember her name. Dr.
Lady.
Not so much on board, but she is now seeing that even in the old folks' home, like tongue guys are showing up.
If you're going to have one character who jumps in, head first into a really extreme situation, it does pay to have another character who maybe takes longer. Yeah. Someone who has to be convinced, because the audience wants us to just get going, but you do want to pay lip service to the fact that these are real people.
Sure.
Ostensibly.
Not everybody's going to agree on the methodology.
Yeah. And I like the way that her subplot ended this week, where she's taking care of her Alzheimer's afflicted mother, and then just a vampire just happens to attack in the building, which is just sort of ridiculous. And I like that it can be that bold now, because usually in a horror movie, it's all about, well, it's also all about these things happening in the shadows, and there's a lot of plausible deniability. And here we're getting to the point now where it's just like, screw it, everyone's going to be seeing these guys.
Under the fluorescent lights.
Although part of me really rejected the Alzheimer's plot, not because it wasn't done sensitively, but because there's one line that the nurse or whoever was in charge of the hospital says, which is, you know, we're going to have to pay someone to watch this woman. And I'm like, aren't you a hospital that does this?
Well,
is this the only Alzheimer's patient you've ever encountered?
It's an elder care facility, and I think they have differing levels of, you know, there are ones you put them in that are more a nursing home, and this might be more sort of a, it's weird. You're right, actually, because I think in places like that, you only get to live there if you have a certain degree of independence.
She would tell them, my mother has Alzheimer's, this might be an issue.
Right.
And they'll be like, oh, okay. It's not like microtransactions where
they would put her in that wing or something.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right.
It's very strange. And it's just one of the many things about this show where the little details feel way off.
I do like the fact that we've established not only, well, thanks to you Dutch Velders, we have bad cell phone and internet, but also we've established the CDC is not going to help.
Oh, and also, oh God. So this is fun on a dramatic level. It's good to have the hero have someone who is entirely against them and doesn't believe him, and all that stuff is great.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you show someone a video on your camera phone of a monster with a tendril coming out of its mouth saying, this is what the virus is doing, and that person's reaction is, well, I saw him drag a body somewhere once, so he's obviously the more important threat. It's the show, once again, being ridiculous, but again, the overworking, you know, the man is keeping us down, the corporations or the government doesn't want to deal with the real problem.
Right.
That's this sort of inherently...
It is ridiculous on its face, but I think at this point we've sort of bought in enough to the idea of the master pulling these strings with the airline and the Department of Health and Human Services and you know, the Stoneheart guy, because, you know,
Stoneheart guy
who also knows the head of the Department of Health and Human Services, and now he's having to move on to a new doctor who will put, you know, more organs into him because the old one won't anymore.
I'm curious, like, because we're starting to get to this point now where the master is slow walking him.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you could have just made him a vampire by now. I don't think he's going to get to be a vampire.
They're really dragging that out. I don't know where that's going.
I think they're just going to kill him. I think he's going to be that, or they're going to like betray him, but he's so powerful he's going to use his resources against the vampires all of a sudden, and they're going to realize they've made an enemy they should.
I think if nothing else, the show is definitely giving us a drinking game in the every time a location appears in the lower right-hand corner.
I want an app on my computer that makes that noise every time I type something. Like, that never happens in real life. I really, really love that. Ryan Turek, who couldn't make it this week, he really wanted us to talk about the eggsploitation.
Oh, exposition.
Exposition, sorry.
Yes. The Jewish Armenian vampire hunter not only can whip up a stunning plate of scrambled eggs, but also tell you all about his Baba and how she warned him about the creatures that feed on human blood.
There's something sort of interesting about that scene, because when you're doing a scene that's just full of dialogue and exposition, you want to give the characters a little bit of business.
Yes.
You want to give them something to do, something to just spice up the scene a little bit, even if it's something as simple as they're making breakfast. But there's something that's just, and it's also something kind of fun about something that's so banal as making breakfast after you've just beheaded a bunch of vampires. That's also kind of fun. And at the same time, there's something just inherently silly about it when this show does it. I don't know. Like, I want to.
I'll tell you this.
I like this show, but sometimes I'm just like, this show is so silly.
The exposition was better than so much of the episode one. Like, you know, I'm running down a hallway and telling you about myself stuff, and you know, all that.
Big building with wings. Like, that's like the stupidest thing I've seen on TV all year. But
it's
I
like a giant
show.
Tylenol.
But I like the show. I like that it's got a good balance of fun and creepy, which is something that's hard to strike.
Yeah, it's engaging. I think TV scary in general is sort of hard to pull off, and they do have some tense moments, and definitely, you know, Ratcatcher in the Sewer, that was some creepy stuff.
It's difficult to pull off in a show like this because, you know, the element of the horror creature being the other, being unexpected, being in the shadows, falls away after a while the more time you spend with them, which is why The Walking Dead really isn't, I don't think it's scary anymore. If it ever has an emotional impact, it's because of just the characters going through emotional trauma. The zombies themselves are just sort of, more zombies. There's a lot of variety to this show, and I think again the simple idea of like they're the vampires who are at home having these very sort of almost gothic literature sort of relationships with their family, you know.
Oh yeah, lawyer mom and
lawyer
the nanny
mom
and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
That was kind of interesting.
All these things are working, but then you also have the Judds. You also have the vampires who are just lurking in the sewers and are just straight up monsters. That really gives you a lot of variety, and I think it keeps the show from being boring, even when it's just strange for the point of strange.
And not everything is happening at the same time. Like Rockstar is way ahead of Lady Lawyer in terms of their vampirism, and you know, she's smelling her kids, but she's not eating her kids. You know, like that. So it's things are being staggered out, and there are a number of conspiracies between the Master and the Nazi guy and Stoneheart and whoever else.
So I'm not bored, and that's really the most important thing. That's like the worst thing any piece of entertainment could be.
I am rolling my eyes periodically, but I'm engaged.
Yes.
You know, so I will stick it out. And we are at or near the midway point, right?
We're about the midway point.
So yeah, so we'll see where this takes us. But you know, more on this next week. Join us.